Focus on Radio Ansaar, Durban 90.4 and Petermarisburg 105.6 FM every Wednesday from 8 p.m. with Yunus Sacoor. That's 8 p.m. every Wednesday. Radio Ansaar, keeping you informed.
खुदा ने मुझको दिया माँ तेरी दुआओं से, माँ तेरी दुआओं से मिला है जो भी मिला, माँ तेरी दुआओं से, माँ तेरी दुआओं से, माँ तेरी दुआओं से जहाँ जहाँ भी गया दिल छाने लगे, जहाँ जहाँ भी गया दिल छाने लगे। ये है तेरा मेरा माँ तेरी दुआओं से, तेरी दुआओं से, माँ तेरी दुआओं से, माँ तेरी दुआओं से, माँ की दुआ जन्नत की हवा, माँ की दुआ जन्नत की हवा, माँ की दुआ जन्नत की हवा, की दुआ जन्नत की हवा। ये कामयाबियाँ शोहरत कदम कदम पे मिली, ये कामयाबियाँ शोहरत कदम कदम पे मिली, नसीब ऐसा मिला माँ तेरी दुआओं से, तेरी दुआओं से, माँ तेरी दुआओं से, माँ तेरी दुआओं से तवाफ मैंने किया पी सही तवाफ मैंने किया पी सही जो मैंने मेरा किया माँ तेरी दुआओं से, तेरी दुआओं से, माँ तेरी दुआओं से, माँ तेरी दुआओं से मुझे गिराने पे हासिद तूले हुए थे मगर, मुझे गिराने पे हासिद तूले हुए थे मगर, मैं दुश्मनों से बचा माँ तेरी दुआओं से तेरी दुआओं से माँ तेरी दुआओं से माँ तेरी दुआओं से कसम है इसमें उजाले का कुछ जमाल नहीं कसम है इसमें उजाले का कुछ जमाल नहीं उरूज से को मिला माँ तेरी दुआओं से तेरी दुआओं से माँ तेरी दुआओं से माँ तेरी दुआओं से माँ की दुआ जन्नत की हवा माँ की दुआ जन्नत की माँ की दुआ जन्नत की हवा की दुआ जन्नत की हवा
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to another edition of News in Focus live on Radio Ansaar International, broadcasting on the frequency Durban 90.4 FM, Pietermaritzburg 105.6 FM, Durban 90.4 FM, and audio streaming www.alansar.org.za. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaba bikum. My name is Yunus, Sacoor, and I will be in your company for the next 2 hours, 8 to just after 10 p.m. I will be interviewing some guests shortly. Today, the date is the 18th of Rabiul Awal 1447 AH, equivalent to the English date of 10th September 2025. We have an interesting lineup for tonight's News in Focus. We're going to chat about the global SUMUD flotilla. We're going to give an update. We know a number of ships will be sailing towards Gaza, boats and ships, and we know there's been 2 explosions on the one of the mothership and another one today, and obviously there's a message. There is a mass genocide in Gaza, we know, and it's a disabling crime. The highest number of amputees, trauma, over 1,400 deaths of healthcare professionals alone. And thousands of other people, women and children, and the genocide goes on, and the world is just looking. There are some activists that are reacting, and in this global SUMUD flotilla, we will get a feedback of who the activists are and what motivated them to do this journey. We'll also chat on the Israel bombing in Doha. That's another huge problem that has taken place in the last day or so. We're also going to chat about the progress on the GNU and the national dialogue. These are 2 topical subjects which is subject to a lot of discussion. And last but not least, we know that municipal elections is around the corner and a lot of new parties are emerging. And we'll interview some of the new political parties and what difference they can make in the political space come municipal elections. So the guest on our show tonight is Brother ISMAIL MOOLLA. He will be giving us an update on the global SUMUD flotilla, exactly what's happening, how many boats are heading towards Gaza, and we'll chat about that. He'll also give us an update on the Israel bombing in Doha, exactly what went wrong. Is America involved? Is Israel involved? Who were they targeting? Were they targeting the Hamas negotiators? Was this a bad fate situation? So we'll unpack those. Later on in the program, we'll chat to Professor Andre DUVENHAGE. He's a political analyst, and he's going to give us some input on the progress of the JNU and the national dialogue and some political issues. Live in the studio, we'll be chatting with ANDILE PHAHLA, the KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Secretary for a new political party called Africa MAYIBUYE Movement. HASSAN MOTALA will join us after the 9 o'clock news to give us an update on financial. And we have live in the studio ABDOOL VALODIA, who is the chairperson of United for Palestine, and he will be covering a host of issues regarding to the struggle in Palestine, exactly UFP's stance, and he'll also give us some updates on the political issues. But without much ado, I'd like to welcome Brother ISMAIL MOOLLA. He's a global SUMUD FLOTILLA coordinator, and he will give us an update on the flotilla, exactly when they've taken off and how many boats, etc. are there. Ismail, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. My name is Yunus Sacoor from Radio Ansaar, and welcome to a program called News in Focus live on Radio Ansaar International.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yunus, it is a pleasure to be on your show, and we know and we understand that the plight of the Palestinians is very close to the hearts of all our brothers and sisters in South Africa. So once again, Jazakallah for giving us the opportunity.
Brother Ismail, I know you belong to the Palestine Solidarity Alliance, and your particular alliance is committed to create activism in dealing with the genocide, in Palestine. But however, the genocide is taking place for a number of years, but there has been some kind of reaction, and this is a positive reaction from activists. I know there's been a few flotillas have attempted to go to Gaza, and they were intercepted one way or another by the Zionist Israelis, and obviously they couldn't achieve the objective. But you can say they did achieve the objective because they created the awareness that people have to react to the situation in Gaza and the humanitarian aid that's required. Now there's been a collective number of boats and ships that are heading that way, and many countries, more than 50 countries are involved, and activists are in approximately 50 boats, stroke ships that are heading that way. But whilst that process is beginning to take off, people are flowing, are sort of sailing from different areas. Recently, there's been two bombings, one with the mothership and another one, I think it was today, where drones were used to actually, bomb a portion of the boat. I'd like to know, before we start the discussion about why the bombings and what is the purpose of the global SUMUD flotilla, perhaps you just want to give us some insight into your organization and the kind of struggles that you all are involved with in the last couple of years, Ismail Bhai?
Yeah, well, at the moment, I mean, obviously the focus is on the Freedom Flotilla and the activities that are taking place in the water. But we are part of an organization that has its roots from 2008. And, the first mission in 2008 was successful. It was the first and the last time that our boats reached the shores of Gaza. Every year after that, we have been attempting to break the siege. And as you correctly say, we've been unsuccessful. But I think it is important for us to understand that we get our resilience from our Palestinian brothers and sisters. And the fact that they go through life-changing challenges every day, and they get up the next morning and face those challenges. So for us, it is a very small price for us to pay when our ships are taken away, we are locked up and released, and we go back. So it's a small price for us to pay. However, the last couple of events has now brought about new dimensions. So previously, we knew the routine. We're going to come across about 100 nautical miles to the Gaza coast. We're going to be intercepted. They're going to take us to Ashdod, lock us up for 2 to 3 days, and release us. And that is what we've always been prepared for. And in terms of our non-violence training, our people, our activists are taught to be submissive. because we are just ordinary normal citizens with no military background, and we don't have the capacity to take on special forces. Sadly, you may be aware that in 2010 we had the attack on the Mavi Mamra. The Mavi Mamra was a very big ship, almost 600 passengers, and 10 people lost their lives. So, you know, the risk of what we are doing is extreme. And, you know, it's so warming to me to find that, you know, something that we have started with one boat a year has now gone viral, in the sense that we have now almost 50 boats that are in the water and representing almost 40 different countries. And this is showing you that people are really fed up with their governments, because this is supposed to be a government responsibility. The ICJ has pronounced that, you know what, aid has to get into Gaza from all directions, whether it's coming from water, whether it's coming from land, whether it's coming from sea, but aid is definitely needed. And governments are not doing this. And what is happening now is unprecedented, where people are starting to take the situation into their own hands in order to highlight the plight of the Palestinians. As you are aware, Yunus, you will notice that even in the Western capitals, I mean, the amount of support that the Palestinians are receiving is unprecedented. I mean, 2 weeks ago, we had those marches in Australia, for argument's sake. You know, it's something that we would have never thought would be possible. But it is showing you that through social media, because remember, the mainstream media is very selective in terms of what it reports on. But it's social media that is keeping this whole issue alive. And it is this that is bringing about unprecedented support for the Palestinians. However, sadly, the reality is that, you know, Israel has total immunity. It's a law unto itself. It's violating every international law, and it doesn't care, it doesn't bother, because it has no accountability. The United Nations is paralyzed. It just pronounces and does nothing. All these countries, these Arab countries, they all blow hot air, but there's no action. So you know, it's only people that are going to be able to bring about change, and this is now being shown in terms of what we are doing. And you know, the thing for us is that imagine how frightening it is for the Zionist regime to have boats on the water, ordinary people, and they can't accept that, and they will use blatant force now in order to scuttle our missions. So for us, the use of drones now, remember, we had the attack on the Conscience a couple of months ago in Malta, which is 2,000 kilometers away from Israel. And that was the first time that we had an attack on our ship 2,000 kilometers away, and by using a drone. So it was an eye-opener for us. But again, let's look at what happened after that. You know, we were having discussions with our activists, and you know, they said, no, we're going. And Madeleine was a very successful operation from our point of view, because the entire international news media were focused on it because of what happened to Conscience. And of course, we had Greta Thunberg, who was you know, international young activist. So there was a lot of hype about that particular mission. The fact that now we have 50 boats and all of them are now in the water, and take into consideration the events of the last 2 nights, it's like a warning that the Zionist forces are giving to us to say, be careful. But alhamdulillah, you know, we salute all the activists who are on these boats, because they know about the risks. Even our South African activists, they've got to sign a declaration to say that they are aware that this is a life-threatening situation, and they are prepared to sacrifice their lives for this kind of cause. So, you know, we must take cognizance of that and keep them in our du'as, and inshallah, Allah protects us all.
Now, Ismail, the details of the 50 boats stroke ships, perhaps you just want to enlighten our listeners how many people are in each boat, and are they sailing in unison towards Gaza, in other words, close to each other to support each other? Or what's the actual process of these 50 ships heading towards Gaza?
Yeah, so remember the ships are of different sizes. The boats are of different sizes. So some may have 10 people, some may have 15 people, some may have bigger boats that would take approximately about 20 people. But we've got boats that have left from Spain. We've got boats that are now in Tunisia. And the idea is that they will meet together at a location in international waters. As we speak, boats are already on their way to that meeting spot. Altogether, we have almost about 300 international activists that are on their way to break the siege on Gaza.
Now, the international waters are how far away from Gaza, Ismail?
No, well, remember, every country has a 200-kilometer maritime international waters. So we are always within that kind of range, and it's got nothing to do with international waters anymore. Because if you look at what happened in the last 24 hours, those boats were in the Tunisia port, so they were not even in international waters. They were in a sovereign country, and they were attacked. So again, it shows you that Israel is a law unto itself.
It cares a damn of international law.
Absolutely.
And now the countries from which these boats are sailing, have they got the blessings of those countries to sail and do what are they doing, or the countries are actually silent about it?
You see, if we look at what happened in the last trip when we had the Madeleine, we had a French member of parliament that was on that boat, and there was no help from France. It's you're doing it on your own, and you're going to bear the consequences. We had an American activist on the Hamdallah, which was the last mission, and the American embassy never even came to see him in prison when he was held in Israel. So these Western countries, they are not part of this process, and they are just giving their people the freedom to do what they want to do, but expect very little, if no help, in terms of international law. If we look at these boats also, the Madeleine was a British flag. And that would mean that Britain has the responsibility because its boat has been attacked in international waters. But there's nothing that comes out of it. So the complacency is there. What surprises me, Yunus, what surprises me is that recently you're finding these European countries that are talking about now recognizing the state of Palestine, which is okay, groundbreaking, because they've never accepted it before, but they're still denying the genocide. So for me, I'm not understanding how that's possible, because you want to create a two-second state solution, but you are not acknowledging the genocide, which is ongoing.
Now, Ismail, I just want to check with you that there's been pressure for humanitarian aid to go into Gaza, and indications are that some trucks are going in. Now, that's on the one side, and we don't know how many trucks are going, because the aim of Israel is not only to do the genocide, but also to prevent humanitarian aid into Gaza. So perhaps before we finalize our chat about the global SUMUD flotilla, if everything goes according to plan, where do they expect to dock? I just want to check if you have any information on the aid that is going into Gaza, because America has intervened in some way or the other, and other countries. And is the aid going in at all?
It's a trickle of aid that is going in. And the level of famine that is in Gaza, the amount of aid that is going in is too little to make any difference. And majority of the people are in such a stage of starvation that even if they get food, the chances of them recovering is also very, very slim. So this is a catastrophe. This is a catastrophe, and it's a man-made catastrophe, and it is a catastrophe that is unfolding in front of our very eyes. And I personally will hold our Arab brothers, I will hold our neighboring countries, Jordan, Egypt, responsible for part of what is happening there, because they have the capacity, they have the capability, they have the power to take action.
So there's serious oppression taking place, and as you said, the Arab countries are just saying nothing and doing nothing, maybe because of fear or whatever the reason is. But that leads me to the other question: is that the 50 boat-stroke ships that are going to sail into Gaza, carrying some aid, which may not have a serious impact into dealing with the humanitarian crisis, but it is a kind of a message to the rest of the world and indeed the superpowers that, you know, we want to break the siege and we want humanitarian aid to flow in, because this is the underlying message. Can you confirm that is the underlying intention? And if everything goes according to plan, where would they dock? In Gaza along the seashore? Because obviously, you know, when you're sailing in a ship or a boat, you got to dock into somewhere. So what's their plan of action if everything goes according to plan, inshallah?
You know, we have not looked at that scenario, because the chances of that happening are nil. Let me be very, very frank with you. And when we have these discussions, within our circles, we say we will deal with that situation when we arrive at the port of Gaza. So let us be positive.
Okay, I'm making that statement because, you know, I know from the time of Sahabas and Ambiyas, you know, there were few in number, and Allah opened the way. And if we as Muslims go, you know, with the near that Allah will help, He'll paralyze these Zionists to ensure that these boats go in, and whatever missiles or whatever drones they use may just go past. We make those du'as that happen, and this proves to the rest of the world, the Western world, who are cowards, and the Arab world, that listen, ordinary people had the courage to do this. Because you said that there's more than, you know, 2 or 3 now, there's 50. And obviously, with unity, there's strength. But what is the underlying message? I know that you mentioned, listen, the chances are maybe 5% or 1% or maybe 0%. We as listeners, we as people that are observing are making strong du'as, and we hopeful the miracle of Allah will come in, yeah? Because Allah, nothing can come in the way of Allah if Allah wills something. And the world is hopeful, those that believe humanitarian aid must go in, that this may be the success of the history. So what is the message that our activists are giving to the world in this particular dangerous trip that's taking place?
The message is very clear. We want to break the siege. The siege is illegal. We are conforming to the ICJ ruling, where the court said that food is desperately needed and food must be able to enter through all avenues. So our message is very simple and very clear. We are out there to break the siege, and we are doing this because governments are failing to produce the aid that is required. And we are now trying to highlight this by saying that there is a possibility that it can be done. The aid that we are carrying, as you correctly say, is very symbolic. But the idea here is that you want to be able to say very clearly that we will not stand by as ordinary citizens and ordinary people and leave the Palestinians to their own. Also, I want to also just add to something that you mentioned earlier. You know, the miracle is happening now. The fact that our brothers and sisters are still fighting after so many days, fighting an army that is supported by the biggest power in the world and still being able to resist, that in itself for me is a miracle.
Alhamdulillah. Just one final question. All the boats are on sea. Without any further disruptions, inshallah, when do they expect to reach Gaza?
5 days time.
5 days time.
The journey from where they are, it'll take 5 days before they reach the interception point. That is what we are envisaging. But in terms of what has been happening in the last 24 hours, these are very dangerous warnings that the Zionists are sending to us. Remember, they are using explosives that are just enough to cause some damage, some fires, not destroying the boats, because they can do that. They have the capacity, But
doing this to
what we are
back.
sorry.
They're doing this to get those boats to turn back.
Yes, they're trying to instill fear into our hearts, but our people are very resolute. And remember, we're always giving our activists that option. Whenever there is things like this that are happening, we have a meeting with them and say, do you still want to proceed? Because this is dangerous. I mean, let me tell you something, Yunus. In 2012, I went to Gaza, and we all talk about being a shaheed and being a martyr, and with humbleness I say this. When I was there the one night, they attacked a building about 100 meters away from my hotel. It was an 8-story building. They flattened it, and there were about 8 bombs that they used. And when I was in our hotel, I mean, the windows were shattered, and light fittings were falling and things like that. And when that process was happening, I wanted to see tomorrow.
Correct. The fear was very, very great.
I wanted to see tomorrow. It wasn't like, okay, I want to be a martyr. You know what I'm saying, Joe? Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun. I wanted to see tomorrow. And it's something that I always think about, and I always tell people that to be a shaheed is a big thing, and it takes a lot to be a shaheed. But that's just my personal experience.
No, even the courage to go on this boat, knowing very well that if they and these guys are they have no fear. They just blow up. They've done that in buildings in Gaza, and if they want to create a sensation and panic, all they need to do is blow up 3-4 boats, and those that are in those boats will be history, and the others will say, "Can I proceed?" Or they may turn, because it's a coward regime. But
Absolutely.
anyway, I want to shift. I've got brother Abdul VALODIA. He's from the United for Palestine. Abdul, come in quickly. Abdul, Bismillah.
Assalamu alaikum. And Ismail, excellent feedback you've been giving through as well. And I just wanted to touch a few things on the same the vessel with all the people that you've got on board. I think it'll be very important for you to mention the names of the 10 people that's on the vessel. What is their normal day life, what type of employment they do, just for our listeners to understand the activism of the people that's on the ground. Furthermore, I just want to add something very profound. When Nelson Mandela says that our freedom is incomplete, unless freedom of Palestine.
Free, yes.
But let's unpack it into another world. Let's look at it in a different way. We always look at it, it resonates to South Africa. I always say it resonates to the world. The day you free the Zionists from the world will be free.
Correct.
Because look at what's going on currently. As we say, you got the issues going on in Qatar, the issues going in all over the world. It's controlled by the Zionist regime. And this is something that we need to amplify. And those words of Mandela is very profound. It's not meant specifically for South Africa. He actually knew that this regime is one of the worst regimes of the world and has to be brought down. And I think Brother Ismail should just, impact.
Ismail, go ahead, Ismail. Your comments
No,
on some of...
Yeah, no, I agree with him. I have the names of the people that are representing South Africa, and I'll just try to keep their bio as concise as possible, because there's quite a few of them. So we have Nkosi Mandela. I mean, he's the grandson of Nelson Mandela. We have Zukiso Wana. She was an award-winning writer and cultural activist. Remember, she received a German award in 2020 and returned it because of Germany's support for Israel. We have Nureen Saloji, who is a 22-year-old audiologist and is a member of the Palestine Solidarity Alliance Youth League. We have Jared Sachs, an activist and writer. He has a PhD from the Columbia University. We have Riaz Mullah, a community leader and chairperson of a local welfare community. And we have Ilham Moufak, who is a French-born humanitarian and member of the Global Movement of Gaza. And then we have Fatima Hendricks, a mother of two, a cancer survivor. Dr. Hendricks advocates for justice through non-violent action. We have Faisal Behra, father of four and grandfather to be rooted in Extonville, whose family was relocated during apartheid. We have Dr. Zahira Soma, born in apartheid South Africa. Dr. Zahira is an international social impact humanitarian leader with 20 years of experience across Africa. And we have Irshad Ahmad Chota, a father of three from Johannesburg, who works in the wood industry. And he's embarking on the global flotilla to stand against injustice. So these are our South Africans that are on the mission, and they are at the moment on board boats on their way to Gaza, inshallah. Again, we salute them for their heroic activities.
Jazakallah, Ismail, by that, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for the South Africans and indeed the others that are on the various flotillas. And we make du'as that they reach their destination and that whatever Israel tries to do to them is unsuccessful. We're running out of time, Ismail. I want to quickly touch on the Israel's bombing of Qatar, a lesson in civility. Now, Israel's strike on the Qatari building housing Hamas negotiators was not a military necessity. It was a declaration. By attempting to assassinate those seeking to mediate an end to the siege of Gaza, Israel made plain that peace is intolerable because peace requires sharing. The only peace Israel desires is the entire piece of land from the river to the sea, free of Arabs and Palestinians. Now, reports coming through that America has accepted this particular bombing, but Trump is denying it. Perhaps you want to give us a brief comment on this, attack on Qatar. Qatar being a peacemaker and an ally of USA. Perhaps just a summary on exactly what is what's your analysis on this bombing of Qatar, Ismail Bhai?
Yeah, the first thing, Yunus, I think it is the reality is that all these Arab states, they suck up to America because they want American protection. And the fact that this has happened to Qatar, remember Qatar is hosting the biggest American base in Qatar, in the Middle East. So this is a slap in the face, firstly, to all these Arab governments that are looking up to the West as a form of protection. Qatar was so happy to donate a $500 million plane just to curry favor with Trump, and hoping that he would have prevented something like this from taking place. So the reality is, at the end of the day,
they should have donated as humanitarian aid to Gaza because they needed more than this.
Absolutely. But they're doing it because you want to curry favor the Trump administration so that Trump can protect them. The missiles that Iran was sending to them when they were attacking the American military bases, suddenly they had the capacity to attack those, to prevent those from landing onto their territory. But here, the missiles that were coming from Israel, they couldn't do anything. The other interesting thing is that what route did those aircrafts fly? Because it had to fly over Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
So did they know about it? And remember, the Americans have got these satellites. They are monitoring every movement. So when those planes are already leaving Israel, the Americans know. So there is no way, in my mind, the Americans did not sanction this attack. They gave the go-ahead to do this thing here, and now they are backtracking. But the reality is, how many other incidents have there been that have taken place in the world? People talk a lot and nothing happens. So it's shocking that the continuation of Israelis' non-accountability in terms of international law is ridiculous.
Now, Ismail Bhai, I want to conclude on this one comment regarding this particular missile attack and the precision in which Israel meant to assassinate these mediators, the 6 of them. At the time that they planned to attack, these guys' phones were there, and probably that was a signal that they're in the building. But the qudrat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was, it was the time of Asar Azan, and all 6 of them had to get up to say, I got to obey Allah's commandments to the command of Salah. And they went to make Asar, but their phones were left in the building. And that gave an indication that these guys are there. And that's when the attack took place, and they missed their target. So the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is beginning to emerge. And this is why I'm saying we're going to be optimistic that those boats are flowing. They may miss their target, and eventually they will prove to the world that the biggest of armies, if Allah doesn't will it affects people, they will go through. So this is a classic incidence of the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your closing comments, Ismail Bhai?
Absolutely, absolutely. Again, we realize that Allah is all knowing, Allah is all hearing, Allah is alive, Allah is aware. But we look at examples of the prophets. If we look at example of Musa alayhi salam, he went through a lot of trial and tribulation. If we look at Yunus alayhi salam, when he was in the whale's stomach,
Yes.
you know what I'm saying to you? If we look at Yusuf alayhi salam, I mean the trials and tribulations that he went through, Ibrahim alayhi salam. But these are all actions that have taken place, and they came out victorious. But they came out victorious when Allah says, right now is the time. It wasn't an instant thing. We as human beings want to have success instantly, but Allah doesn't work that way. So we must be steadfast, and we must be committed that Allah is with us and staying with us. But also, Yunus, it's a classical example of how if it's not your time, it's not your time. And that is why whenever martyrs are killed, we celebrate, because we know and we understand that they are in a better place and their time was up. It's got nothing to do with the Zionists and what the Zionists are doing. And that is our strength in being Muslims, and that is our strength in creating a brotherhood where we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and have faith in Him and know that victory must come, because every tyrant must fall.
Most certainly. Ismail Bhai, I thank you for joining us, for making so much sacrifices for our brothers and sisters in Palestine, and indeed being an activist, caring for humanitarian in other parts of the world. May Allah give you the strength, Hidayah, to continue with this good work. And we request our listeners to make du'as for our activists that are going in there, and indeed our people of Gaza, that victory is around the corner for them, and inshallah humanitarian aid will start pouring in due course. Shukran for joining us once again, Ismail Bhai, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah once again, Yunus, for having me. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
That was Brother Ismail Mullah from the Palestinian Alliance, doing some very good work on behalf of our brothers and sisters in Palestine. On that note, we'll take a short break and we'll continue our discussion on another subject, which is basically progress on the GNU and national dialogue, and we'll connect to Professor Andre DUVENHAGE shortly.
Radio Ansaar. This segment is brought to you by Kenfield Auto, your RMI approved service and repair specialist. 236 Brickfield Road, Overport. Kenfield Auto.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. ربنا لا تجعلنا فتنة للذين كفروا واغفر لنا ربنا إنك أنت العزيز الحكيم.
Car won't start?
Kenfield Auto.
Noisy brakes?
Kenfield Auto.
Due for a service?
Kenfield Auto. Kenfield Auto, the answer to all your car problems. Your service and repair specialist for your VW, Audi, Suzuki, Toyota, or just about any vehicle. Kenfield Auto, your RMI and insurance approved workshop to handle them all. 236 Brickfield Road, Overport. Call us on 031 207 2399. Kenfield Auto.
Listen to News in Focus on Radio Ansaar, Durban 90.4 and Petermarisburg 105.6 FM every Wednesday from 8 p.m. with Yunus Sacoor. That's 8 p.m. every Wednesday, Radio Ansaar, keeping you informed.
Ya Rasool Allah, Ya Habib Allah, आपका आका 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 फिर के गली गली तबाह हो करे सब की खाए क्यों दिल को जो अक्ल दे खुदा तेरी गली से जाए क्यों रुखसत का फिदा कशान गश से हमें उठाए क्यों रुखसत का फिदा कशान गश से हमें उठाए क्यों सोते हैं उनके साए में सोते हैं उनके साए में कोई हमें जगाए क्यों फिर के दिल को जो अक्ल दे खुदा तेरी गली से जाए क्यों यादें हुजूर की कसम गफलत ऐश है सितम यादें हुजूर की कसम गफलत ऐश है सितम खूब है कैद गम में हम खूब है कैद गम में हम कोई हमें छुड़ाए क्यों फिर के गली तबाह वो जो न थे तो कुछ न था वो जो न हो तो कुछ न हो वो जो न थे तो कुछ न था वो जो न हो तो कुछ न हो जान है वो जहान की जान है वो जहान की जान है तो जहान है फिर का गली गली आका की खाए क्यों दिल को जो अक्ल दे खुदा तेरी गली से जाए क्यों हाँ जान गए इश्क़ मुस्तफ़ा रोज फजू करे खुदा जान है इश्क़ मुस्तफ़ा रोज फजू करे खुदा जिसको दर्द का मजा जिसको दर्द का मजा सांसे दवा उठाए क्यों फिर के दिल को जो अक्ल दे खुदा तेरी गली से जाए क्यों है तो रज़ा निरा सितम जुर्म पे गए लजा हम है तो रज़ा निरा सितम जुर्म पे गए लजाए हम कोई बचाए सौ से गम कोई बचाए सौ से गम साज़े तरब बचा
Radio Al Ansar, 24/7, 365.
An informative Islamic global perspective. This is Al Ansar News.
Breaking news this hour, the 10th of September. The news from Durban 90.4 FM, Peter Maritzburg 105.6 FM. Independent Police Investigative Directorate says KwaZulu-Natal is among hotspots for rogue police officers. Americ Monina. The Independent Police Investigative Directorate, IPID, has identified KwaZulu-Natal as one of the problematic provinces for police officers who go rogue. Earlier today, the IPID released its statistics for the first quarter of 2025-2026. It says over 1,100 cases across the country were reported to the IPID in the first 3 months of the current financial year. Most of the cases were in 4 hotspot provinces, namely the Western Cape with 213, Gauteng 177, KwaZulu-Natal 161, and the Eastern Cape at 138. Independent Police Directorate spokesperson Lizzie Suping says the province with the latest or the least intake is the Northwest with 73 cases. Many of these cases are as for assault, torture, and death due to police action and the discharge of an official firearm. Suping says there has been an increase in the number of officers accused of sexual assault, with 27 cases recorded compared to 22 in the corresponding period last year. More news now. Communities on the South Coast are appealing for stronger support from authorities in dealing with ongoing electricity supply challenges. Residents say reporting faults or power faults has become a very difficult exercise. They are complaining about long call queues and say the only other option they've got is chatbots on WhatsApp. In some cases, customers say technical repairs are also delayed because parts must be collected from Pinetown and Peter Maritzburg. The DA in the Ugo district has launched a petition calling for Eskom to set up a local customer care office to improve communication and speed up service delivery. Eskom in KwaZulu-Natal says it is aware of the petition. President Ramaphosa responded to questions in Parliament in its question and answer sessions. Various issues were raised, such as the U.S. tariff on the South African economy. President Ramaphosa had this to say.
You need to achieve. We believe that we are on the right course, a course that should end up with a mutually beneficial outcome. The United States is our second largest trading partners, accounting for hundreds of thousands of workers who are employed here. The 600 US companies that are doing business in South Africa employ many people, and it is the interests of these many people that we as a government have to take care of before we engage in a war that may not yield the results that we want. So if one wants to play to the gallery, one could embark on the type of option that Honorable Malema is talking about without knowing what outcome that option will have.
Burning tires and clouds of tear gas filled the streets of Coronation View in Johannesburg earlier today. Residents had taken to the streets over water shortages they say have been ongoing in the last 8 years. Several people were struck by rubber bullets as the police tried to disperse the crowd. Residents are insisting that the protest is peaceful and they are in the street to demand a basic right, which is water. Finally, international story. Iran has condemned the Israeli regime's aggression on the Qatari soil, stressing the need for Muslim countries to act in unison to confront the Israeli regime's atrocities and its looming hegemony. Israel launched airstrikes on the headquarters of the Palestinian resistance movement Hamas in the Qatari capital Doha in what was described as an assassination operation that claimed the lives of several Hamas officials as well as civilians in the Persian Gulf Arab country. In your weather, it's 29 degrees. A quick reminder of our top story. The Independent Police Investigative Directorate has identified KwaZulu-Natal as one of the problematic provinces for police officers who go rogue. That's the news.
Radio Al-Ansar, keeping you in the loop.
One child, one dream.
A journey with African Muslims Agency that began 3 years ago has changed the lives of Syrian and Palestinian refugee children beyond their dreams. Help them to continue their education by sponsoring a student at the Amman School of Excellence in Lebanon for 25,200 Rand per year. Education at Amman can provide a brighter future for refugee families.
AMA, empowering, educating, inspiring.
Welcome to the Village Code Cafe and Bistro, where flavors dance and every gathering feels like magic. Halal certified and run by 3 sisters, we serve breakfast all day, from bagels and sourdough open sandwiches to burgers, wraps, toasties, tacos, nachos, and our signature coffee blend, crafted just for our cafe. Host your next event with us, all in a space that feels as good as it tastes. Find us at the Westville Village Market, 123 Jan Hofmeyer Road, lower ground level. Call us on 079-670-4093. The Village Co, where every bite feels like home.
Radio Al-Ansar welcomes your feedback. If you have a broadcasting related complaint, please put it in writing and address it to the head of the complaints committee. Include your full name, contact details, a clear description of your complaint, and any supporting documents. You can email your complaint to feedback@alansar.org.za. That's feedback@alansar.org.za, or bring it in person to our Pietermaritzburg office at 240 Ortman Road, Willowton. Your input helps us serve you better.
Radio Al-Ansar, 24/7, 365.
Listen to News in Focus on Radio Al-Ansar, Durban 90.4 and Pietermaritzburg 105.6 FM every Wednesday from 8 p.m. with Yunus Sacoor. That's 8 p.m. every Wednesday. Radio Al-Ansar, keeping you informed.
Allah, 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 और इंतहा लाखों तने है सामने बैठा हूँ मैं मायूस कुन आए ना कोई मुझे थामने अल्लाह अल्लाह तू मेरी सुन ले सदा मायूब हूँ तेरा करम करता रखा इज्जत भी थी बढ़ के दिया औकात से दौलत भी ताकत भी और वक्त भी कर दे खता हर माफ तू फहरिस्ते इसियां को छोड़ दे अल्लाह अल्लाह तू मेरी सुन ले सदा حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير رنگینیوں خود غرضیوں میں ہے گزاری یہ عمر ہے آرزو بس یہی کر تو تیرے نام شام و سحر تسکین دل حاصل کروں رخ اپنی جانب تو موڑ دے اللہ اللہ تو میری سن لے صدا حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير لبينا ذکر و دعا اور تجھ سے میں ڈرتا رہوں کر کے عمل قرآن پہ جنت کی راہوں پہ چلتا رہوں خدمت کروں اسلام کی پچھتاوے کا غم توڑ دے اللہ اللہ تو میری سن لے صدا حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome back to News in Focus live on Radio Al-Ansar International, broadcasting on the frequency Durban 90.4 FM, Pienberg 105.6 FM, and audio streaming on www.alansar.org.za. Before the news break, we were chatting with Brother Ismail Mullah. He gave us a good account of the global SUMUD flotilla and some of the pertinent issues, and we also chatted about the Israel bombing in Doha, some pertinent comments there. I'm sure the listeners got a clearer idea of what happened there. We have live on the line with us Mr. ANDILE PHAHLA, KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Secretary. Now, a new political entity, the MAYIBUYE African Movement, known as MAYIBUYE, led by its president Floyd Shivambu, has officially entered South Africa's political arena. Now, we interviewed some of the members of this particular movement when they were still a consultative forum, like we've interviewed other political activists and ratepayer associations. But Shivambu, who previously served as Secretary General of MK Party, said that MAYIBUYE is not merely contesting for participation, but with a clear objective of securing victory. Now, this is a very, very bold statement that this particular activist is making. He's mentioning that we are going to contest all the wards in the 2026 local government elections. We are going to contest to win all the municipalities in 2026. He further went on to say that the formation of MAYIBUYE follows an extensive national consultation process that commenced in June, with Shivambu saying that there is a deep-seated desire among South Africans to be a genuinely heard movement. So the movement now officially has been registered as a political party under the Electoral Commission Act of 1996, also unveiled its foundational document, the Africa MAYIBUYE Restoration Manifesto. Now, this all arises because of the experience of their leader. He's been involved in the various political parties, starting with the ANC, before the ANC Youth League, and then he switched many years later to EFF, and he found that there were problems there, and then he went to MK. Now, a lot of people referred to Floyd as a party hopper, but he says that if I'm not happy and they are not responding to the community needs, then there's a need to move on. So he moved on, and the people suggested that he becomes the leader of this party. So with me, I have live on the line ANDILE PHAHLA. ANDILE, good evening and welcome to News in Focus live on Radio Ansaar International. ANDILE, are you there?
Good evening. I'm Professor Andre DUVENHAGE. Maybe you talk to me. I'm not sure.
Okay, Andre, I think we were wanting to interview you concurrently with ANDILE, but since you're on the line, Prof, welcome to News in Focus. After a good couple of months, we're back on air with you.
Yes, indeed.
Now, Prof, thanks for joining us. I know you had a few health problems, and we wanted to chat to you because there's so many things happening since we last spoke to you. And I remember the last time we spoke to you, we were discussing, one odd year into the post-elections, and how is the GNU performing? Is it really going to work, or is there sort of troubles amongst the parties that are involved? Perhaps you just want to give us your comments on the performance of the GNU to date, and do you think that it will improve service delivery in South Africa?
Well, I have seen a report about the successes and or failures of the Government of National Unity. And what is clear is that the success rate was below 10%. So I think we can argue that the Government of National Unity is basically a failed experiment. What we see at the moment is a number of parties, 10 of them coming together. They are under the leadership of Ramaphosa, but not a lot is happening. They are not working as a coordinated unit. They are working in separate silos. Everyone is working back to its own party, and there's no common ground. My understanding is that there's no communication between Ramaphosa and the leaders of the other parties, or at least minimum communication, and most parties are only reporting back to their own constituencies. So in that sense, we can argue that the Government of National Unity at the moment is a non-functional entity.
Now, Prof, just arising from what you're saying, it is abundantly clear that the parties are working in silos. Safe to say that they are controlling government, with the ANC in the majority and these adding on to get the 50%. Now, there were threats from some quarters that they may dissolve. Now, the ANC then were of the view that they want to hold on to it. Is this because of the power control or Ramaphosa becoming president? Because if this thing collapses, there could be all kinds of problems.
Well, if the Government of National Unity is collapsing, then we are in a phase of political instability, and there's even the potential that we may head for an early national and provincial elections. And we know that there are parties and groupings within Parliament that want to put a motion of no confidence in the president. And I'm also aware of a lot of divisions within the structures of the ANC itself. So I think Mr. Ramaphosa at the moment is in a very risky environment. And I think that is to put it mildly. My honest take on the situation is that he has lost control over government, and he's basically trying to survive politically. And I already pick up some of the indications that there are lines developing between, let's say, his deputy president, Paul Mashatile, and certain groupies mobilizing against Ramaphosa, and some of them even linking towards the MK party. So this can be a real dangerous situation that can potentially develop. And at the same time, there are rumors going around that we may see a reconfigurated form of a government of national unity, which is more aligned to what we saw in Gauteng province, where we have an alliance or a coalition among parties like the ANC, the EFF, and IFP, and so on. And maybe at one point, it is even possible for the MK party, if Ramaphosa is removed, to become part of such an alliance. My take on this is that this will be very negative for our economy, which is already on the decline, and we have recently heard about a lot of job losses in many areas. So it's a difficult time we are in.
Now, the DA and Freedom Front Plus have slammed Ramaphosa over the failed national dialogue. The national dialogue was launched by a first national convention aimed at addressing issues through engaging with civil society groups, and it took place around the 15th of August 2025. But what these parties are saying, who are part of the GNU, is that Thabo Mbeki Foundation and many others had withdrawn from the national dialogue, citing the lack of trust in the president. Now, the DA highlighted that South Africans are in need of real jobs, growth, poverty reduction, lowered cost of living, instead of an expensive empty talk shop that will cost taxpayers almost 700 million, and it's come too late. Your comment on that, will this add fuel to the fire, Prof?
Yes. Let's first start by asking what is a national dialogue and what is the purpose of a national dialogue. A national dialogue came into play when a state entered a phase where it cannot handle its own problems, or where one single party cannot deal with the problems. And then there's something like a national forum or a national convention, or whatever they like to call it. They are coming together and they are taking some fundamental decisions about the future. I think in a way we can refer to CODESA, the multi-party conference, within that particular context. Also the period that built up to the Union of South Africa in 1910. But the problem at the moment, and I think you are quite right, there's a complete lack of confidence in the president. And there were also serious accusations that the president and the ANC is going to use that 780 million, I think. Later they said it's down to 400, but it is still problematic. They will use that for electoral purposes, because we know that the ANC is in financial trouble, and the end result was that not big influential groupings were part of this national dialogue. And basically, it was a complete failure. And you're absolutely correct. The Desmond, the Leah Tutu Foundation, the Mbeki Foundation, the FW de Klerk Foundation, major political parties doesn't take part in that dialogue. So in that sense, it was problematic. Mr. Ramaphosa tried to present the opposite by arguing that it was a huge success, but clearly it was a failure. And my take on it is that we need a dialogue. We need to discuss the fundamentals of South African politics, our economy, our society. But I am afraid that the ANC and the ANC government at the moment don't want to lose control over the situation, and this is making it about impossible to enter into a form of a national dialogue.
Now, another scenario, before I introduced you, I was chatting about the emergence of a new political party headed by Floyd Shivambu, the Africa Mayibuye party. Now, they obviously have indicated that they have enough support and leadership to challenge for the local government elections and win a lot of municipalities. Now, with me on the line, joining us, is ANDILE PHAHLA. Is ANDILE on the line? No, I lost him. Andre, I just want to chat with you about the emergence of a powerful new party, because Floyd Shivambu is a well-known activist. He was with the ANC Youth League. He was with the ANC for a number of years. Then he moved when the EFF was formed, and he was the Secretary General there, and he played an integral part in the functioning of the EFF. And then when he realized that Malema was becoming a bit of a problem, he then joined the MK for a short while. And there were indications that there was a leadership struggle in MK, and he felt that he was getting nowhere. And then he quit the MK, and then a lot of the leaders in those parties also quit with him. And then a consultation process started throughout the country, which I sort of highlighted before I introduced you. And indications are they ready to contest municipal elections in all the provinces and in all the municipalities. So, how do you feel about this party as opposed to other smaller parties? Do you believe they'll play a significant role in government in the future?
Well, in general, there is a major reconfiguration of our political environment going on at the moment. And I think at the moment, the total of registered parties are something like 472. And we know that the general voter is relatively conservative about his or her choice of political parties. And my take on it is that smaller parties are very ambitious. I will be surprised if there's more than, let's say, 20, 30, 40 parties represented in all the 257 municipalities. We must also take into consideration that there are as many as about 13,000 wards. So to contest that wards in 9 provinces, can you think the nature of the organization you will have in order to nominate candidates, to position them, to promote their position, to run campaigns, and to pay the money for the IEC and so on. So I am not that positive about Floyd Shivambu. My take on it is that he may be lucky to win a few wards here or there, but I'm really not expecting a big impact in terms of the national profile. Maybe he can gain a ward or 2, 3 in Limpopo, or maybe in KZN, or a place or 2 in Gauteng. That may be possible, but on a national, even on a provincial level, I cannot see Mayibuye becoming a major role player. What we can say is that in this era of coalition politics, and if we look at the 2021 elections, we ended up with about 70 out of 257 municipalities with hung councils. I think there's going to be a lot more. It's probably going to be double that total, maybe even more than that. If the decline of the ANC is continuing like surveys and academics are predicting. In such an environment, a small support in a coalition environment can become critical. But that is the only position I can see the Mayibuye party and Floyd Shivambu playing a role in the political environment.
Now, I want to do a quick comparison of the emergence of MK and how well they did in KZN and in Gauteng and nationally, because obviously they were a new player in the bloc. Now, when Floyd was meeting the various communities throughout provinces, the response he got was phenomenal. And whilst it may appear as though there's going to have to be a lot of resources and what have you, him being a seasoned campaigner with all the other parties, obviously there's some very important challenges you highlighted, but the MK was only in place for a period less than a year, and they were able to muster so much support. Do you think that Floyd may be able to take a similar route, but not necessarily within the municipal elections? Maybe he needs to select which provinces and municipalities he'll have a stronghold to contest. Maybe in the provincial and national elections, it may be different. So that seems to be the message he's been giving in the various consultative forums. Do you think that he may have the support to challenge in many of the municipalities? I know you were not optimistic about it.
I honestly don't think that this is going to be the case. I think to make a comparison between Floyd Shivambu and Jacob Zuma is basically not going off. The fact that Jacob Zuma, as a former president, as an established person with strong support in KZN, and a major role player within the bigger political regime. We had the 2021 uprisings where the security environment failed to contain the uprising, which was an extreme mobilization of support on the behalf of Jacob Zuma and his grouping. I cannot see Floyd Shivambu operating on that level. I can see him gaining smaller support in certain environments, but then we must also take into consideration at the moment, politics in South Africa is at the ebb and not at the flow, because we are in between elections. We haven't seen the big parties really becoming involved in electoral campaigns, creating momentum, and you will find that the bigger parties, and here I'm referring to the ANC, the Democratic Alliance, even parties like the IFP and so on, they are building up their momentum. And at this point in time, we are about a year and a half away from the election. I believe the election will only take place around February 2027. So it's still a long time. Now, you can argue that this can give Floyd Shivambu the opportunity. But at the same time, there's a sword over his head, and that we call the VBS bank scandal. And I believe that he went to the MK party because he is concerned about the possibility that action may be taken against him in this regard. So this story can also unfold before February 2027. And under these circumstances, his political career may be at risk.
Okay, no, very pertinent points. Just one final question to you, Prof. The race to the ANC presidency is around the corner. And obviously, Ramaphosa is not eligible to stand for the presidency. What is your candid opinion that who are the potential candidates to success him or will be contesting the ANC presidency? Because if the ANC does form a coalition and become, sort of involved in sort of the, parliamentary presidency post, that particular individual who's the president of the ANC will become the president of the country. What's your take on the race to the ANC presidential elections?
Well, at the moment, we already know that the deputy president, Paul Mashatile, has made his candidacy available for president of the ANC. We know that there's conflict between the Ramaphosa camp and the Mashatile camp. It is quite interesting when Ramaphosa is leaving the country, he is not putting Mashatile in control of things. He will rather choose Gwedi Mantashe or someone else. I believe that Gwedi Mantashe may also have political aspirations. And then very recently, a day or two back, the name of Naledi Pandor appear from somewhere as a potential candidate. I believe it is very early times to identify candidates at this point, but I think there's a lot of momentum behind Mashatile at the moment. I can read it within the politics of Northwest. My info is that he's working close with Panyasa Lesufi, and Panyasa Lesufi has certain connections and links towards even the MK party. And I'm not putting the MK party out of the framework of the competition and conflict within the ANC. In fact, if a person like Paul Mashatile can take over the ANC, it's not impossible that the ANC can merge with the MK party, because Zuma is on record saying that the main aim for the establishment of the MK party was to get rid of Cyril Ramaphosa. So there's a lot going on within the ANC. Only yesterday I was at the academic conference and a very authoritative academic made the statement there, is William Gumede of Wits, and saying that he believed that the ANC support will drop to the level of 25%. So I think the whole of South Africa is in for major change, not only the dynamics within the ANC.
Well, I think very interesting, over time we'll begin to see how the situation emerges. But I thank you, Prof, for sharing some very valuable information with us as always. And we wish you everything of the best in your political, endeavors. And we hope to invite you sometime in the future once again to update us on various issues. Thank you very much, Prof. Duvenar, and all the best.
Thank you very much.
That was Professor Andre Duvenhage. And we were trying to get hold of ANDILE PHAHLA. I'm not sure whether you've got him on the line, Asif? Okay, so before we get Andre, this ANDILE on the line to comment on, the MAYIBUYE Africa Forum, I've got Mr. Hassan MOTALA. He's our economist and asset manager. Hassan, you heard Prof. Duvenhage chatting about the way the political situation is emerging, and what's going to happen with the ANC presidency and the impact on South Africa. He was concerned that the economy will be impacted, but if you look at the numbers that are coming through in terms of again the rand being so stable, the JSE has gone to more than 102, touched 103,000. So the numbers are different from what is being predicted. Hassan, what's the reason for that?
Sure. So I think a day ago we had the GDP numbers that came out for South Africa for the second quarter of this year, and the numbers were much better than expected. Although much better, but to put it into perspective, it came in at 0.8% for the quarter relative to expectations of 0.5%. But the key drivers of this during the quarter was effectively three areas: the mining sector, the agricultural sector, and surprisingly, which many people were surprised with, was the manufacturing sector. Actually had a relatively strong quarter. So I think that was better than expected. I think the mining's been pretty strong and robust, because if you look at commodity prices like platinum, gold, those have been, having a very, very strong run over the last, during the past 6 months or so. And that definitely is contributing to the mining sector showing some strong positive growth. But surprisingly, agriculture did pretty well. But we must bear in mind now with the tariffs that are sort of just being kicked in from the US, we could potentially see, obviously the third quarter and more so the last quarter of this year, being a bit negatively been impacted as well. In terms of the financial markets, Yunus, I think we've seen it, over the past, during the course of this year as well, that the equity markets, both in SA and globally, are touching record highs. South Africa's JSE is over 103,000 points. You've seen the S&P 500, the Dow, all those hitting record numbers as well. And it's been on the back of, I think, there's been reasonably decent, results coming through from many of the companies, but still there's still some optimism around the equity markets as well. So I think that's been driving it. And from a rand perspective, I think we've seen a weaker dollar coming through over the last few months that has benefited the rand. So you've seen quite a few of the emerging market currencies like the Russian ruble and a few of the others have done pretty well over the last few months as well. And the rand has been also one of the reasonably decent performers as well during this past few months.
Okay, I'll come back to you, Hassan.
Sure.
I've got Andile on the line. Andile, good evening and welcome to News in Focus live on Radio Ansaar International.
Good evening, gentlemen. I could hear you, but I could see you couldn't hear me.
Okay, Andile, our apologies. We had you on the line, and then we had a cross line with Prof. Andre DUVENHAGE, and I think we lost you. Just for introduction purposes, we advise our listeners that you're the Provincial Secretary of Africa MAYIBUYE movement. Now, political analysts have expressed skepticism about South Africa's political landscape following the launch of the Africa MAYIBUYE movement, with some questioning the authenticity of the party and its potential performance in the 2026 local government elections. Now, Floyd, your leader, a former member of African National Congress, Economic Freedom Fighters, and the MK Party, announced Africa MAYIBUYE movement's registration as a political party. Now, we had Andre DUVENHAGE, a political analyst, on the line, and we asked him honestly, how do you think this party is going to perform? And he mentioned that this party may not have the same impact as MK because obviously MK's leader was Jacob Zuma and it was a different scenario. Floyd seemed to have indicated, have we lost Andile or are we? Andile, are you there?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm here.
Now,
yes.
Your party head
leadership
is
I do.
Can you hear us, Andile? Hello?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Now, the question I want to raise is that Floyd Shivambu, your party leader, mentioned that he's contesting. Have we got a technical hitch? We lost him.
I'm back. I'm here.
You're back, Andile. Okay. Andile, the question is, I know we got a network problem. The question is that your leader, Floyd, mentioned that he's contesting all the municipalities in the forthcoming elections, and there's just more than a year left. How confident is your or are you that the party will be able to successfully contest these elections?
Thank you. I think first we need to understand that our movement is a people-oriented movement. We came into existence because of the plea of the men on the ground. So we aren't looking at people, but we're looking at them as a solution to the current issue of the gaps within these political parties that you've mentioned. So we are a solution-based, Ubuntu-based, Pan-African organization that is already on the ground giving solutions. We've got African MAYIBUYE Medics that is assisting people in terms of testing and screening and assisting them within the gap of the health sector. We've got boreholes that we've identified, and we are currently assisting people on the ground to get things done. So purely focus only on the elections. It's just an element within the movement that says, yes, we will contest elections, but our movement is going to exist pre and prior elections.
Now, I think it's important that a lot of small parties, came about because of their activism in various associations like civic organizations, ratepayer associations, and the work is done amongst those organizations, and then you emerge into a political party. Now, what I'd like to check is that, and this was raised by Prof. Andre, is that do your party, and I know the party is still growing and you're building up resources, do you all have the financial and other resources to contest elections in all provinces? Because what happens when new parties emerge, they focus in stronghold, areas of stronghold, so they don't necessarily contest all the municipalities. They may be going for the bigger municipalities and go from there. Now, your party head's comment is that you're going to contest all the work in all the municipalities. Are you mobilizing to achieve that, or in other words, that's the target, and will assess it closer to the elections?
I think the president giving us those orders is exactly what we will achieve. We must understand that we aren't going at this as business as usual. We know that money does not guarantee votes. And we do understand that the social impact that we're giving people on a daily basis for us to be seen working and giving solutions is the key for us to assemble the necessary powers in terms of resources so that we can then, when it comes time to vote, that we are visible and have the backing that's needed through, resource allocation through our volunteers also. So we are coming up with dynamic plans in terms of how to finance our campaigns, not only going out there and looking for big bankers, Money is not the solution to politics. Otherwise, the ANC should still be in power and running business as is. So we are very confident. We are existing now in all 11 regions within the province. And this is with no big funders behind us, which gives us a narrative of saying we're here to lead, but we will lead for the people, and anything we do has to be for the people.
So can I summarize and say that you're aiming for the sky, but if you end up somewhere in the middle, depending on the situation, you would be fine. The work of providing activism, civic involvement will continue.
Yes, as I'm saying, I do agree with you there. We are not a voter-focused organization or movement. It's a multi-layer pillar. We've got Mawusa, which is a unionized version of a wing of ours. We have a traditional and chiefs element within our organization. We have a students and youth wing within our organization. So we will carry on serving communities out our tenure throughout till 2029 and beyond. We will not be governed by people looking at them as just purely voters. But the mandate given to us was given to us by the people on the ground, the people that have been forgotten, the people that asked us to join this, the fight for the average man is what we'll fight for.
Thank you, Andile. I think, obviously, it is, quite meritorious for your party to emerge, and you'll have experienced people that have joined the party. And I'm sure you got enough time to really, mobilize and ensure you contest elections wherever you think you can make a difference. I take this opportunity of wishing you and the party everything of the best in the forthcoming elections, and we will certainly interview you guys closer to the time. I think we lost Andile, but he made some pertinent points that the civic activities do continue on the ground, and certainly they will assess the situation closer to the time. I want to bring in Mr. ABDOOL VALODIA, who's the chairperson of OVERPORT Ratepayers Association. He's also the chairperson of United for Palestine, and he made some comments on the FLOTILLA and indeed, the bombing. Now, Abdul, you've been a sort of civic activist and a ratepayer association activist with ORA, and I always bring you to join us, is to give us an update on some of the challenges facing ratepayers. And indeed, we heard Professor Andre DUVENHAGE talking about the key parties and new parties emerging, and what's his take. Now, you mentioned in previous interviews with me that the different wards that have got the ratepayer associations, those wards must start mobilizing to prepare candidates and leaders for municipal elections, because those that are representing the ratepayers in those wards are looking at the delivery mechanism those leaders are sort of providing to the community. For example, in ORA, you got yourself and a couple of other leaders. So obviously, when you're selecting a candidate for the ward, you need to look at the support from the ward, but also from those that are registered in that ward. So in line with what ANDILE was saying and Prof. DUVENHAGE was saying, that as a chair of ORA, how do you see leaders emerging from ratepayer associations being successful in the forthcoming elections? For example, MAYIBUYE is saying, we want to contest, we got the support, join us, and that's the call. So how do ratepayers align themselves with political parties to make sure they win a particular ward?
Sure, thanks, Yunus. I think it's very important of what Professor was actually, what he alluded to, what he spoke about. Prof was quite very interesting. He mentioned about the failure in the GNU. And, if we look at our issues with service delivery, we have the GPU here. And I can tell you something, realistically speaking, if we look at the city and look at what's happening currently after the GPU has come in as well with the GNU, it actually comes exactly to what he says, the failure in the system. And that's due to these, coalition that's happening, because everybody is trying to fight for something. And, everybody is trying to sing a song for service delivery within these organizations or political parties, but they have their own agendas. And, we've always noticed this in the past with regards to, other political parties in certain wards where there's failures, and they're always blaming the Tikwini municipality for non-service delivery. But I, as a chair of a ratepayers association, always say, I don't blame the municipalities, I blame the councillors in our ward, which is very important because they are your connection between your ward to the municipality. They are your link. Exactly how we are on the radio station, you are a radio manager. There has to be some system that where you have accountability. We cannot go directly to the city manager. We cannot go directly to the mayor. We don't have access to him. We have access to a councillor. And when your councillor fails, we have issues of what we are faced in wards. And this is happening all over the country and all over the provinces. So that's why it's very important in what you say for us to pick councillors from within ourselves. And I think as ORA, Alhamdulillah, from the time we've actually formed this organization, because OVERPORT was in really shambles. There was a lot of issues that we are faced with regards to service delivery. And, a few people of us that actually stood and we said, listen, let's do something. Let's help the community. And we formed the ORA. And from the time we formed, I think people still have a better life, and at least they have some hope that when they don't have water, there's lights, water outages, they know they can reach the ORA, and the ORA is there to assist them.
So there's interventions taking place to ensure that improved service delivery does take place.
100%.
That's your observation.
That's the observation.
Right.
So we're saying as a civics, we have this power that we have created, and where we're assisting communities. We've actually done this all over, which is in KZN, which we have, chats with Phoenix and so forth, and, so on, that where we're finding ratepayers association right up to Bluff. And we've also part of other organizations like ERPM, ERRA, which is, mother bodies of ratepayers associations. And, I must say again, all of us don't get paid for doing this. We are this civic bodies, trying to help communities, make a difference to somebody. I still recollect, and I think yourself, the wife even asked me many times, don't you have work to do? You're running on the road to go and see that the water outage or the bin didn't, bin's dirt was actually all over, sewer is flowing. Now, it takes few people to do something that can change society.
If everybody else relies on each other, nothing gets done.
100%. So we say people need to get together. And, I myself as ORA, we are going to have some public participation. And even with the help of Ansaar, we are going to have some programs here within, Radio Al Ansar within the hall to encourage people to come and have this engagement. And I believe that councillors must be elected from your area. Councillors should never come from out of your area because nobody can feel the pain that we feel in our community, in our area.
What you're saying is build up your leaders and then lead them to councillors.
100%.
And get linked up with a progressive political party to ensure that you attract all the voters in that area, not only a particular race group.
That's true.
Because you could be representing in Overport also a large number of informal settlements, and you don't want them to move away from the vision of ORA.
100%. The other thing that we notice as well, and this is observation from all ratepayers associations, that we do not find us as minorities, we call ourselves, as Indians, Indian communities. We don't find enough of councillors of our color in our areas, and yet we are the people that are the majority in the area. If you take, for example, areas like Phoenix, areas like Chatsworth, even here, right here in Overport, majority is Indian here. But we don't have an Indian councillor.
Because the leaders are disinterested, or they don't stand for elections?
I think it's a problem of voter education. I think it's an issue between people that didn't want to pick up their hands to say, let's serve, let's do something for the community. I think that was the biggest issues that we found, and we have to change this mindset. And as ORA, as the chair of ORA, I will say this, and I'll say this aloud to anybody on this, that's listening to this. Come to us, pick up your hand, and say, listen, I want to serve the community, and I have the interest of heart for community, and I like to be a ward councillor in this area. And we will make sure we will back the person, whoever decides to pick up the hand, because that's where it must come from. But also, activism must first start from the beginning, because you cannot put somebody in the job that hasn't even done the work.
Correct.
Right? So, people must go to the program and they must get the job done.
So you need volunteers to
We need
join.
volunteers to join.
There's no financial reward, but there is also, sort of improvements in service delivery in
100%.
that area, and you need a group of people to come
100%.
in. And if not, all the people should join and assist. And I see in ORA, you've got a lot of members, and many of them are raising issues, joining and wanting to get involved. So in that way, politics will improve in those areas, not only civic activism, but eventually leaders, as councillors will emerge.
Very true. As you know, most political parties are out there for a political issue, to make sure they build that political party up strong. I don't say all political parties don't have interests of the community. Then you might not be in that space. But obviously, because you've chose the wrong person to be in that political party, I won't say the ANC is bad. I won't say they are bad, because you know what? We all voted the ANC. We go back to the struggle. We knew what apartheid was all about. We all voted them. But there were bad people in the system that brought them down to where they are today. And we need to fix it. We need to fix all parties, be whoever they are. Like you have the Africa MAYIBUYE that's actually came up now. And I believe that people need to back political parties and find a home and form alliance. And you need to see who is talking for you, and do you have representation there. As I mentioned this to the people in Phoenix, which has the largest population of Indians here in South Africa out of India, which is Durban. And I said this, guys, we as Indian communities, we have given our votes to political parties, but you couldn't even earn a seat of MMC or even on a high ranking, on a high ranking capacity with regards to any political party. But you gave your votes to these parties that are holding votes for you. And yet go and look at it. Not a single Indian that's sitting on the high office. Why? Is this how easy people are just they're willing to give away something without getting anything in return? Because if you're not in power and you're not sitting in that seat and the table, there's no power to anybody.
Thank you for providing clarity on that issue. I want to bring Hassan back. Hassan, Prof was talking about financial resources to run elections. We also raised the issue last week of the increase in unemployment and the need for a response to employment. And the different municipalities are talking about economic development in their municipalities, which will stimulate job creation. But at the same time, with this tariff adjustments, the Eastern Cape has reported serious job losses because of financial problems. Perhaps you want to sum up exactly how do you see the situation improving in terms of the unemployment rate, or do you see it declining further, or will economic development emerge to improve and cut down the degree of unemployment, Hassan?
Sure. Look, there's definitely within the next 6 months or so, there will be a negative impact in certain areas. The first one being the motor industry. Unless I see there's a delegation that's being sent again to the US to try and get a trade deal done. Whether we're successful in that in the coming week or 2 weeks or so, we'll see what the outcome of it. But as things stand with the 30% tariff, the motor industry is going to be under pressure. So that particularly the Eastern Cape will feel probably the brunt of that. But it's not all doom and gloom for the motor industry. Yesterday, Nissan came out in South Africa and they said that they're continuing to invest here and they're expanding. In fact, one of their products is the Navara truck, or what you want to call it, the SUV. They're going to be focusing on producing that and exporting that vehicle. So I think in the short term, while we've had a decent, I won't say very good, a 0.8% is not a great number, but relative to what we've seen in the first quarter and expectations, it's better than expected. I think that the second half of the year, with the impact of the tariffs, that will have an impact in a few sectors, one of them being the motor vehicle sector, and the second one being the agricultural sector. Agriculture will be impacted because exports currently, especially certain of our citrus products and the like, there's a big part of it that does go to the US, and it unfortunately will impact in the shorter term. What is being done currently though? There has been behind the scenes and a lot of work slowly being done to try and start moving some of our product into newer markets over the next year or two. So that will happen. That will take time, but that will slowly start to reduce the impact of this tariffs. But that you can expect it more to start taking place from 2026 onwards. And places like India, China, and other Asian countries and the Middle East, I think those countries will start to take some of our products that are being exported to the US and sort of go towards those countries. And I think that hopefully will help longer term. Shorter term, though, the impact it will be there, especially on those two sectors. The other key things is, despite all these challenges, we are seeing still investment taking place in this country. So, for example, we've talked about on the tourism side, whether it's the Club Med resort that's being built in the North Coast, that will come on stream next year. But Walmart, who's already been an investor in the country via owning the Macro and the game stores, they are opening their first Walmart store in South Africa before the end of this year. Now, Walmart's a big retailer, one of the biggest retailers in the world. And they now looking to set up Walmart-related stores in South Africa beginning this year. So that's actually another good sign to highlight that they still see South Africa as an area of economic activity and potential growth going forward. Otherwise, they wouldn't have bothered to even look to open up. So that will bring about a bit of increased competition for the likes of Shoprite, Checkers and Pick n Pay and the like. But again, better choice for consumers, hopefully better pricing and better products as well going forward as well. And at the same time, more investment coming into the country as well. The third area which I want to highlight is the area around utilities and service delivery. And that's been a biggest challenge for us for a number of years. The one area we've seen improvement has been electricity because there's been consistency of supply. Though you've had a bungle a real mess up by NERSA. And the unfortunate thing of that is the 54 billion rand miscalculation with ESCOM, with the result over the next 2 to 3 years, we as the consumers are going to feel the impact of that, because there's going to be higher than expected increases in our electricity tariffs over the next 2 to 3 years. So that's an unfortunate thing which will impact. But we are seeing steady supply in terms of electricity, which is good, and it's helping particularly the small and medium enterprises in the country. The area that's still, and Abdul talked about earlier, and we've seen it for many of the some of the other guests as well, is the service delivery remains a big challenge, a massive challenge. And there's still in many places in the country where there's a lack of urgency and a lack of talk about what's happening in the area called Coronationville in Westbury, a area dominated largely by the colored community of this country. They haven't had water for the last 6 days. But importantly, for the last 5 years, they've had really poor delivery in terms of water during this period of time. For the last 5 years. Now, they've lost patience. And you've seen now in the last day or two, this protesting and the like that's been taking place. But what's happened? Instead of the police numbers came out in force when they require them. And you can hear it when it was on SFM and I think another radio station, I heard it as well. When they're speaking to the residents, they say, when we need you to come, police to come, they're not at all to be seen. When there's murders and this, but they're here to stop us protesting, and they're shooting at us. There was a journalist from Daily Maverick got shot with the rubber bullets. There was tear gas. These are people protesting because basic necessities such as water, basic things such as water hasn't been given to them for the last 5-6 days. But importantly, for the last 5 years, they've had poor delivery. I mean, the one old 60-odd year person had to walk from his place to there was a petrol service station that was actually helping and giving out water there. This guy had to walk quite a bit to get to that, carry a 20-liter bucket or whatever, and go take it to his place. Now, do you expect that of people, retirees or pensioners in their 60-odd years and whatever? And the guy, what he said? He needs it because in the family that he's in there, we need it for bathing for me, the kids, and we've got babies with nappies and the like. How do you clean people? Basic necessities like that. And that's where the municipalities, the provincial governments, and the national government has failed in many areas in this country. And you has to be all accountable. And that's an area which still is an issue, and it impacts us in terms of economic growth and also employment as well. You get service delivery properly in terms of water, electricity, road transport, rail transport. You get those things right. Our economic growth will naturally pick up strongly. So instead of seeing this average of 1% we've seen in the last decade, we can get back to the 3-4% levels which we saw in the Thabo Mbeki era. And those are the challenges we face. And, again, the elections that take place next year, it's going to be a watershed moment, I believe. And I think it's an important point where you're going to see people, I think people, because of what's happened, they're really heartful of what's happening in terms of the existing politicians and the like. But I think there's a lot more activity, and they will push through the ratepayers associations, make noises there, and try and get the right people in place to try and do the basics right. And that's what we need to get done.
Some very important points, Hassan, that you mentioned. I think our time has run out, and what has come out loud and clear is that community involvement in civic activism and ratepayer association is now becoming increasingly important and necessary. And our message to our communities out there, join the ratepayer associations, get involved in civic issues. Don't sit back and let others do the work. You've got more than 12 months to prepare yourself for municipal elections. No point, raising issues and not being active. As Abdul mentioned, a few of them got together and they formed ORA, a few years ago, and the outcomes are quite promising. And leading up to the elections, they're already preparing themselves, like the political parties. And obviously, the registration process, the encouragement of people to register must start now, because no point in trying to register when the window period has closed. So, getting involved in civic activism is part of life. You are asking service providers like the municipality to account for your contribution to rates, to utilities, and indeed your taxes, because provincially and nationally there are services that are provided as well. By providing an oversight role through ratepayer associations and civic organizations, you begin to question those in employment, whether they're doing the work. And from our previous interviews, it's becoming apparent that a lot of these municipalities have employees that are not delivering, and the delivery rate or the production rate, if you may use that word, is less than 50%. So councillors who are adequately or appropriately appointed will have to go to those head of departments and ask them to account for service delivery. When there's budget hearings, we have to attend those hearings. So mobilize now, because there's a bit of time we have. On the upper levels where there are politics and political parties are having issues with each other, let the leaders that we've elected deal with those guys, so that when municipalities know that the ratepayer associations, civic organizations are holding them accountable, they will also keep a watch on themselves to improve service delivery. But our take from what we're hearing is there's an overhaul required in all municipalities, and the only way we can do the overhaul is to elect the right people to lead those municipalities. So on that note, that brings us to the closure of News in Focus for this evening. We must thank our guests that joined us, Professor Andre DUVENHAGE, Brother ISMAIL MOOLLA, ANDILE PHAHLA, HASSAN MOTALA, ABDOOL VALODIA, and you shared with us some very, very valuable information. I thank our tech Asif Pili for handling the tech side very well, as he always does. And I'd like you, the listeners who've joined us and kept awake till the late hours of the evening, to enjoy our program for this evening. Until next Wednesday, do enjoy the week. Make du'as for our brothers and sisters in Palestine. Make du'as for the flotillas. Make dua that they go there and achieve their objectives, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help our brothers and sisters in Palestine. The struggle will continue, and we have to make sure we're part of the struggle. Until next week, Wednesday, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Listen to News in Focus on Radio Ansaar, Durban 90.4 and Pietermaritzburg 105.6 FM every Wednesday from 8 p.m. with Yunus Sacoor. That's 8 p.m. every Wednesday, Radio Ansaar, keeping you informed.
Ya Rasulallah, Ya Habiballah, Aka, 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 Aka. फिर के गली गली तबाह ठोकरे सब की खाए क्यों दिल को जो अक्ल दे खुदा तेरी गली से जाए क्यों रुखसत का फिदा कशान गश से हमें उठाए क्यों रुखसत का फिदा कशान गश से हमें उठाए क्यों सोते हुए के साए में सोते हुए के साए